Real lives, real people. The Non-Identity Podcast. The Non-Identity Podcast is sponsored by Limited Power Boxing. Find them on Instagram for all your boxing needs. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to this week's episode of the Non-Identity Podcast. Now, this week we're joined by the Councillor of Cotswell and someone who once invited me to play a game of baseball using bar furniture as the ball and a sledgehammer as the bat. It's Dean Temple. Hi, Dean. Welcome to the show.
I'd forgotten about that. Oh, wow.
Before we get into all that, can you just explain to everyone who you are and what you're up to now?
Okay, my name is Dean Temple. I was born out in Oxfordshire. It's a lovely place, but not if you're a young kid, 16, 17. It's boring as hell. So the second somebody mentioned this thing called university, I went, cool, I'm there. I wound up at the University of Greenwich, which at the time we were living in New Eltham in Diggs, called Avery Hill. I don't know if it's still there, but the campus was in Woolwich at the time, that big office block behind the pool club. And whilst I was there, I met a few friends, and a friend of a friend was running a pub, and then she said, "Oh, do you want to help us out?" Because I was working as a bartender in various places and stuff. And I said, "Yeah, go on in. I'll give it a go." So I gave up uni and ended up running the Ordance Arms, which is where you and I met all those years ago. Yes.
When I was 16.
Oh yes, yeah. So I took a year out from uni as like a gap year, then took a second one out, and I'm now in my 27th gap year now in a row. So I'm not sure if I'll go back, but theology's loss is Woolwich's gain, I suppose, eh?
Exactly. And was the Ordance Arms, was that your first time being a landlord of a pub?
Yes, it was. I've been assistant manager in a cocktail bar in the West End called Strawberry Moons, just off Regent Street. I think there's still one in Maidstone now. This was, if you imagine the movie Cozy Ugly, where the staff dance on the bar, I did that. The film Cocktail, where they chuck bottles around and stuff, I did that. I think you saw me do that at the Audi a couple of times, chucking bottles around and mixing cocktails and getting people very, very drunk. So yeah, I mean, I always ascribe to the idea that I've done crap jobs. I've worked in factories, I've cleaned toilets, I've done all kinds of stuff, because you got to pay the rent, feed the kids, so you do the work. Do you know what I mean? And if you're doing that work, if you go out on a Friday night, that's your 2 hours of your boss not being there and all the rest of it. Now, I don't understand when you go to a pub or a bar and the staff are arseholes. The manager's a dick. The bouncer's a dick. It's like it's almost like you're an inconvenience. Now, if you're working on a building site or a factory or whatever, that is your time to be happy. You're meeting your friends, So I tried as much as I could to make sure that everyone was happy. Are you okay? How are you feeling? I've got an idea for you. You like gin? Have you tried this? And that was always my thing, which sometimes it went a bit far, as you've mentioned, smashing up furniture with sledgehammers. I think at one time we had to hanging baskets, but the owner of the pub refused to pay for a gardener to look after them. So we didn't have hanging baskets. We had baskets full of soil and dead weeds. So I think one night we took them off and played Olympics with them, swinging around as if we were doing, what's the Olympic sport? Throwing the hammer?
Hammer, yeah.
That's it. So one chap almost got it as far as the Iceland shop. So that was fun, because this is your time. You're the customer. You've had a shit week. Your wife's been nagging you. I'm going to look after you for that evening. So I can do anything I can. I'll do that. Do you know what I mean? Which carried on forward. A couple of years ago, well, 10, 15 years ago, somebody asked me to stand for election at the local elections here, and I went, why would I do that? I get all grief and nastiness, and you get people and phone up and say, "Oh, there's a pothole outside my flat. I want it fixed," or neighbours being a dick. I want me to sort them out and stuff. But what kicked in again was, looking after people, helping them out. If I can help you out, I will. and that's the way I've always been, or tried to be, really. So
Yeah. Before we get into your role as a councillor, we'll head back to obviously your landlord day. So you was very up for keeping everyone else happy. How did you keep yourself happy? Because you've got to think, Thursday nights was a late one, Friday night was a late one, Saturday night was a late one. So how did you keep yourself going? Because as you said, you come down every night with a smile on your face, but obviously you had life going on as well. So how did you keep yourself together?
The honest answer is I didn't. I got diagnosed with depression about 17 years back. I split up with the wife, and she left me with the 2 kids. So I was a single dad working a 40-hour job, trying to pay everything, and there was not enough month left at the end of the wages. So the babysitter was unpaid, the rent was unpaid, and I just lost the plot. I was homeless. I went to the council and said, look, you need houses, and I got the usual, well, there's not many properties around, and are you sure you're the father of the kids? Because women don't abandon kids. I'm like, well, she had her own issues, she had baby blues and stuff, and bless her, I'm on good terms. I'm with her now, but at the time it wasn't the right time for her to be a mother. So, and I explained all this, and they were like, well, it's not. And all of a sudden I burst into tears. Now, I don't know if it's the same with you, but I was born in the 70s and grew up in the 80s when men were men. You know what I mean? You let the women cry, you let the women show emotions, and all the rest of it. So I was ashamed of myself for several reasons. One, I was asking for help, and 2, I was crying in front of a complete stranger. And the girl put a hand on my arm and said, look, go to the doctors. I said, I don't do doctors. And I mean, when I work in the garden, making furniture stuff out of a pallet, just something to do. I'll cut myself, or I'll slice hand everything. Being an old-style bloke, I'll get a bit of a bog roll, wrap it up, gaffer tape it up, and carry on, because I don't want to go to the doctor. Do you know what I mean? That's for sick people. I'm not sick. It's fine. Anyway, so I got down to the GP's office, and she said, right, I'm going to ask you some questions. I said, I'll stop you there, sweetheart. I've not thought about suicide or anything like that. All the questions that you and I would assume they ask mental people, crazy people. Do you know what I mean? And she asked me 7 questions. And she said, on a scale of 0 to 5, 0 meaning never, and 5 meaning every day, are you eating well? Do you sleep well? Can you see other people's points of view? Do you struggle to see? And I'm like, oh, okay. And I did the thing. And from 0 to 5 times 7, you get a score out of 35. And she said, well, based on your answers, your score is you're on the cusp of being moderately and severely depressed. And I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm happy. And she went, no. Depression doesn't mean sadness. You've got to break that link out of your thing. And initially, she gave me citalopram, which I'm not quite sure that's how you pronounce it, but it's a neural inhibitor, and if anyone's ever actually been on it, the first 4 weeks are a mind fuck. You're happy and sad at the same time, and after that, you then settle down on it, and then when you try and come off it, you get that big 4-week patch of happy, sad, all over the shop, hormones going everywhere. But what I noticed was it worked because you felt nothing. You felt numb. Your kids give you a hug and you're like, okay, I got a hug, that's fine. You're watching a movie and a sad thing happens. You go, okay, that's sad. That sucks for them, I mean? Your brother says, I've met the woman of my life, I'm going to get married, and I'm so happy. And you're like, okay, so you get regular sex, that's fine. And all of a sudden, I realized that I was having no emotions at all, which cured the depression to a certain extent, in that all those bad, negative feelings I was having stopped, because I was having no feelings and emotions at all. So I come off that, and I worked with the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and said, look, what is it that I can't see? What is it that I need to do? What things are affected by it? And it come down to the fact that I'm now 12 years drug free, and what I'm doing is exercising well, eating well. I don't take things to heart. If anyone does say anything nasty to me, or I think it's nasty, I've got to say to myself, are they, are they being a dick, or am I imagining it? And that's actually beneficial, because if people are being dicks, it's now water off a duck's back. It's fine, So it took me many years just to, as you say, look after yourself, because if you can't look after yourself, you can't help out others. I mean, the bar thing was interesting because I'm a naturally shy person. I'm an introvert. If I go to a party, I don't want to talk to anyone, not because I'm rude or ignorant, but because I'm shy. I'm nervous. But behind the bar, that was a stage. I was putting on an act. It was a performance. I was playing a character. I was Dino, the governor. Do you know what I mean? Rather than Dean Temple, the kind of shy boy in the corner who doesn't want to speak to folks. So the character's still there, and I do use that kind of a mask and kind of as a battering ram and kind of as a push to myself to say, look, if you don't want to do it, let the character do it. Let the character walk into the room and say, hey, right, tequila's on me. You right there, fella? That's cool, fantastic. And my voice goes up a few octaves, and it just carries me along almost, so.
I totally agree with that, because I find that's how I get through life in a way, because obviously, as you're aware, in my drinking days, I was burnout. Got it tattooed on my arm still. So burnout was a character. Burnout had to be crazy. Burnout had to get a drug out of his head, and he had to better himself. And I remember, like, one night, something silly happened in the pub, and you stopped my head getting crusted by the bouncers because they were really getting pissed off with me. And you was like, "Look, just go home. We'll see you tomorrow night." And I was like, "No, now enough." And you had that calm nature, and it was like literally like, "No, Lee, get yourself home, and we'll definitely see you tomorrow." It's like, okay, right, sorry, like that. But like, even now, like, I drink once every 3 to 4, 6 months. I call it my blowout night. Other than that, I was drinking at home all the time, and that. Then I was coming down, obviously, to the pub and stuff. I don't do none of that now. But I still live through cat. So like, when I work in a school, during the day, I'm lead a teacher. Then when I'm at home, I'm lead a dad. Or when we're podcasting, I'm lead a podcast host. So I feel like that's how I get through life. And sometimes it's hard to recognise who is actually Lee, if you know what I mean, because you're pulling different parts of, because you're different people throughout the day.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Probably the same. I don't know, like, and it's really interesting you said that, because like I said, until you just said that, I didn't know you were a shy person. And it makes sense now, because when you used to come out of a night, as you just said, you was Dean the governor. And it makes a lot of sense, because you was high energy for the whole night, and it was part. That's why, really, you picked a pub in a really rough area, but you didn't have loads of trouble. Obviously, you got the usual, but you got it to a crowd that was. It was like someone's birthday every week. It felt like that atmosphere every time you went out.
Yeah.
That's the way you got the place feeling.
Yeah. Did you say that about the lack of trouble? I mean, there was, because, as you say, it's a rough area. There's lots of popular. It was the first area I'd ever been whereby, I mean, back here, your pubs were busy between 11 and 1 because people had their lunch break from work, and then busy between 5 and 7 because people finish work, have a beer, and go home with the family, and then busy between 9 and closing time because you've gone home, you've had your tea, you make your kids, you put the kids to bed, you've gone out for a beer. Woolwich and areas like that, with the unemployment so high, there were no jobs, which meant you didn't have lunch breaks or stuff like that. You'd open the bar at 11 in the morning, and people would just drift in, and they'd stay all day because they got nothing else to do. Do you know what I mean? That's the only thing I've done. I mean, I remember once I try not to throw out people, but at the end of the day, you're throwing out money, which sounds mercenary, you know, but at the end of the day, if I threw out every single person every time they did something stupid, I'd have an empty pub. You know, it's better to pull a guy aside and say, dude, I love you to bits, but you're being a bit loud. Just bring it down a bit, or get yourself off home, have a kip, come back tomorrow. I'll buy the first beer on me, but today I need you to not be here. I think the best example of that, of just being that guy, was we had a guy who was touching up the girls' bottoms and trying to reach over and touch a bit more, but let's not be a bit too graphic about it. So out the door, gone, out of here. So he goes, I'm going to be back with 15 of my mates, and you're in trouble. I went, yeah, whatever, it's fine. So 2 hours later, Big John, he goes, you know that guy who said he'd be back with 15 of his mates? I went, yeah. He said he lied. I went, I told you he won't come back. He says, no, he's got 20 of the fuckers out there. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I went out on the doorstep, and he's there, and there's big posse there, all in there, roadman gear as we call it now, but it's the same kind of thing. And he's at the front, and the noise lads are lined up behind him. He goes, our mate here, he says he's barred from your pub. And I went, yeah. What's that for? Because he's a dickhead. So you're not going to let him in? I said, not going to let him in, but every single one of you, I will not only let in, but the first round's on me. And this guy went, yeah, they're my mates, they're fine. Whoa! And the guys literally grabbed him, threw him to the side, and everyone to a man shook my hand and said, I'm Steve, good to meet you. I'm Dave, good to meet you. I'm Eddie, good to... And the rest of the night, these lads were fantastic. It doubled my take for the night. And this guy who was thrown out was knocking on the window, like, getting people's attention to get the attention of the person who helped him out. And the general response to them was to go,
I remember.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but I'm saying that's the thing, because in a way you diffuse the situation by
you have to,
to turn on him in a way, because it was like off of a free drink or back your mate. It's like, what are you going to do?
Exactly. I mean, the thing is that I don't know if your viewers can actually see this, but I'm about 5'7". I was always skinny until recently when I hit the middle age, and of course the belly spread comes out, but I've still got skinny arms and skinny legs. Did a bit of boxing as a kid, but I didn't have the coordination for it. So in a street fight, I'd be useless. Do you know what I mean? I'd know enough to punch a guy to leg it, and that's about it. So especially in that area, you can't be the tough guy, because even if you're the hardest guy on the street, the hardest guy on the next street is bigger than you. There's always somebody bigger than you. There's always somebody tougher than you. And worst case scenario, there's always somebody standing up behind you with a broken bottle. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there was an instant. It was a friend. Do you remember Paul? So a couple of Paul's friends turned up. We had a couple of older lads. So you had 5 or 6 young lads and 2 blokes in their 50s. I think one used to work at the Old Kent Tavern.
Right, yeah.
Big Perno. Anyway, something was said, and the guy who was drinking the Perno was one of those guys who, if you know him, he's all right. But if you didn't, you'd think he was a miserable bugger and wanted to fight everyone, which, to be fair, he was Scottish, so he did. And all of a sudden, it kicks off. The little guy starts ranting and raving. The big guy in the group steps forward. So me and the bouncer go forward. He grabs one of the older guys. I grabs the youngest lad, but the biggest guy. Wrap my arms around him, and we've miscalculated. There's one guy left. He's picked up an ashtray, which is made of foil because I didn't allow glass ashtrays at the time. Yeah, smoke doors. Picked up a glass. It was a plastic glass again because it's a rough pub, you know. And he's grabbing anything he can find as to use a weapon. Eventually, he finds a Red Bull can. Now, this was the flaw in my logic, the one thing I missed. So he's picked it up and he's folded it like that in half and then tore it. And he's raised it up like this and he's gone for this guy's face. And I'm thinking to myself, if I don't let go of this guy, he can't defend himself. But if I do let go of this guy, there's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
So I've spun the guy around to protect him, kicked the boy in the nuts, dragged this old the guy I'm holding to fire exit, kicked the fire exit door in, threw him out the door, and slammed the door shut behind me. And I thought that'd be it. But then I realised how weak those doors are, because it's like a Terminator film. A fist comes through the door. And at that point, I should have shat myself and I should have ran away. I should have got scared. I should have panicked. But for some reason, all I could think was, this bastard's broke my door. I've slammed the doors open and went, right, you. And I pointed up to him. He's 6'6", and there's me about a foot shorter. And I'm pointing at his face, going, you broke my door, you bastard. And it must have worked, because he went, oh, sorry, Governor, and walks off. Now, unfortunately, when I tried to pull him away, it turns out it was actually quick enough, because next day he turned up to apologise sober with a patch over his eye. I said, well, what's that for? And he says, well, when he had the can, it caught me just below the eyelid. And he said, doctor said if it was half-inch higher, I'd have lost the eyeball. And it was like, so he said, are we all right, mate? And I'm like, I nearly got you blinded, and you're asking me if I'm okay with you. You know, it's lovely of you to say that, but you know, thank you for that. Yeah, spot on. You know, so,
how did you find like the policing in Woolwich? Because I remember one night, a group tried to dance with my mate's wife. He had a little word with him. Something like a Stanley blade or something come out, and it's sliced my mate under the eye. And I remember the pub.
That's right, yeah.
I remember the pub kicking off, but I remember the police coming, dispersing the trouble, but 3 minutes later told us to leave. Yeah. So they got rid of the gang that it happened with, and then they were trying to kick us out of the pub. It was like, well, hang on, they're still out in Woolwich. You know you're going to go around the corner and we're all going to be fighting again.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, no, you need to leave.
Yeah.
Why do you think it was like? Do you think it was just... Did you find the law enforcement was cooperative with you because of the area we was in, or...?
I think you've hit the nail on the head in that a lot of these guys are, you know, I mean, they changed the rules a while ago, which meant that you couldn't become a copper unless you had a university degree.
Right, okay.
Which I think is mental. Yeah. You know, there's certain jobs like coppers, soldiers, nurses. If you're a working class person and you want to do good, you should be able to do that job. Do you know what I mean? Now, obviously, if you're going to go into higher ranks, like, you know, a sergeant or an officer, or you're going to be an inspector in the police or whatever, then yeah, you need a bit of education, blah, blah, blah. So rather than having guys like you and me becoming policemen, therefore knowing certain areas and knowing what it's like there, you've got guys who, middle class people, went to uni, then get thrown into an area like a Woolwich and just panicking and going, oh my God, what do I do? It's like, you know, scary people off a Guy Ritchie film, what, you know, whatever, you know. And so there was certainly a disconnect between the police and the locals, in that obviously, you know, there's certain areas like that, or Liverpool, or, you know, certain parts of Oxford where you don't grasp, you don't speak to them, you don't snitch, you know what I mean? If your granny's raped, you keep your fucking mouth shut. If, you know, you sort out yourself, but you don't tell the old Bill. Now, if you're a policeman and you're trying to, you know, investigate crimes and stuff, and all you're getting is stonewalled saying, we don't talk them to you, I mean, there's going to be an element on the police's side. I'm not defending the police, but there is that to accept that they've come to do a job, and the people they're trying to help and look after aren't being cooperative. So I think for a lot of policemen, not all of them, but for a lot of them, the response in their brain was to go, well, fuck you then, you know what I mean? You're just fucking idiots. You're a bunch of fucking cattle. And when I turn up and you're fucking scrapping, I'll pull you apart, tell you to fuck off both ways. And apart from that, stab yourselves, it's fine. I don't care, you know what I mean? Especially on the higher ranks. I mean, I remember one of the days when something like that happened, had a senior bloke turn up and say, right, I want the pub cleared now. I said, well, I am clearing it, but, you know, I can't just snatch drinks off people because they paid for them. I can encourage them to drink it fast. And I said, look, give me 7 or 8 minutes, the pub will be cleared. I want it shut now. I said, it is shut. We're not serving drinks, you know, we're fucking them off out, you know, boom. Turn the lights off. I'm like, dude, after 11 o'clock, we become a nightclub of sorts, you know what I mean? Because we put lights down low, and that shows that we're having a party. When the lights come up, it's like being at school and disco. The lights are on, you go home.
Yeah.
And he told me to turn lights off. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. He then told Robin, my assistant, there. Robin went, okay, turn the lights off. At that point, everyone who was outside went, it's back open again. And they all started partying in the pub. And the cop was like, why did you let him in? I said, I didn't. You did. I told you if the lights are on, they'll fuck off because they think the place is shut. Because you turn the lights off, they think we're back open again and they come back in again. Well, that makes no sense. Well, it doesn't have to make sense. It's just the way it happens, you know what I mean? So there was certainly a lack of communication between the police and the locals, which we see all over London and other areas. And I moved to London in, '97. So that was only 3 years after the Stephen Lawrence affair.
Yeah.
At the time, his murderers had not been arrested, and there was a lot of. You were living there. Did you and your friends think that the police even gave a shit?
Exactly. Yeah.
There we are. You know what I mean? Like I say, I moved there 3 years later, and I got that vibe that the national press were gunning about it. Everyone was talking about it, except the police, because they, just another scumbag off the streets. Do you know what I mean? You got 50 guys scrapping on the streets. You've now got 49. Less work for us to do. Boom. Yeah. And that was the attitude. I'm not saying that's what they thought, but that's certainly what we thought that they thought. That's the attitude that they gave us, if that makes sense. And it's a horrible thing because I've got loved ones who are now police officers, and they work hard and they try their best, and they're not like that. But even they will say, yes, I recognise that in people I've worked with in the past, people who, we've put complaints. There was a chap, he murdered a young lady, and he was being investigated for flashing his female co-workers now. And the attitude was, oh, it's just him. That's old rapey boy. I'm fine. You know what I mean? You kind of like,
yeah.
Wow. It sounds like I'm anti-police. I'm not, but you and I have experienced situations whereby the attitude shown to us isn't endearing us to them. Yeah.
And also, I think we're going back 20 odd years ago, Rel, so it has come on from then. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do, and obviously the press now, we know what's going on in the police force at the moment. But like you said, you've got loved ones. I've got a couple of friends in the force. There is good. It's any company. You get good eggs and bad eggs, no matter what type of company it is. And obviously, it's the same with the police. So totally agree with you. We're not anti-police, but we've been in situations where it's come across that the police don't give a damn, especially when it comes to that drinking culture. I believe it's sort of it's down to the pubs. It's down to you lot on the street just yourselves out. We ain't got time to deal with this. So also, because not a lot of people will know about Woolwich. So Woolwich is like a square. So you had a couple of pubs that stayed open late, like the Ordance. So you obviously had the Pullman, which is now the train station. You had a Chatham still there, and then you had the nightclub. I think some people might know it's Flamingos. I knew it was Entice and Galaxy. Was there a lot of competition amongst you lot, as in it got horrible amongst you lot, or was it like friendly competition? Did you guys just not interact with each other? All like the governors of each pub or bar? Did you?
We had what is now known as Pub Watch, but back in the day it was the licensed victuallers. Of all the pubs in the area, the two pubs that just refused to join in was the Great Harry, which was the Wetherspoons pub. And I've actually worked with Wetherspoons a couple of times, and you're told don't get involved in pub watch stuff, which is sad. And the other one was TJ's. Now, TJ's, I don't know if you can describe this, was about 2 doors up from the Audi, and it was, for want of a better word, it was a community centre that sold alcohol. And if you got barred from all the other pubs in town, you could go there. So it just became a sponge for arseholes and dickheads and twats who have been barred for arrest.
I only ever went once. Me and my mate who we used to hang about with, we tried for weeks, because obviously we was underage, we didn't have ID, tried for weeks and weeks to get into TJ's, and the one weekend we got in, it was like, yeah, we're finally here, because we heard about it, and they were like, yeah, welcome to TJ's closing down weekend. I was like, okay, that's why we got in there. So, I only experienced it once. It was like, but it weren't great.
No, I mean, I went to TJ's a couple of times. I think once because I'm short of change. I mean, you say all the pub landlords I'm working together. So I mean, I could phone up the chat and say, look, I'm at lager. Can I borrow a barrel of Foster's off you? Somebody say, Dino, I'm out of change. Can I have some pound and coins? So you'd have that. The worst thing the police ever did, amongst their many, many worst things, was closing TJ's down. Because TJ's was, as I say, the sponge for all the worst in Woolwich. And they stayed there. Because they knew. Exactly. And then when TJ's closed down, every pub in the area had a 2-month period whereby we had to relearn who the arseholes were and bar them. The guys that selling the drugs, we had to bar them, and it's a nightmare. It's absolutely horrible. I had the windows put in 3 times, I think, and in fact, the last time I didn't bother getting them replaced because people come to put your windows in and go, oh, someone's already done it. Okay, fine. Which sounds awful, but I mean, it was like £300 a time, which I mean. 20 years ago, that was 2 weeks' wages.
One night that really sticks out in my head, and I want to get your point of view because I sort of joined it a bit later, was the night of the Ragheads. Don't know if you remember this night.
The Ragheads. Oh God. We have to say this is not an anti-Asian thing or an anti-turban thing. This was just guys being drunk and putting bar towels around their heads. So that's all it was.
For what I remember, was I looked out the window. And all my mates and you guys are having a cider fight in the street of Woolwich. I didn't run out, fully clothed, not thinking, chuck my drink over someone, carry on in the fight. Then walk back in and remember shit. I'm soaking wet here, so I was like, Dino, please, can I just stand behind the bar and wash my shirt? So I remember about 12:30 from midnight, I'm standing in the sink rinsing my shirt out. And then, of course, because everyone was wet, everyone was topless. And then we just decided to pick up the bath rags. Put them around our heads. And then, from what I remember, this is why, because obviously you was more sober than I was, a toilet seat come out, and a funnel, and a hose, and you was on the bar.
If you check out my
ideas come out.
Oh dear. Well, if you check out my Facebook page, and I think there's an old Facebook page called "What Happened at the Audi," because most of us can't even remember. Not even me. There's a photo handy, topless, leaning with his back against the bar and head back like that, holding a funnel in his mouth. And I've got, I think it's a bottle of vodka, a bottle of Bacardi, bottle of tequila, and a bottle of peach schnapps, just pouring it in this funnel. I think that was also the night I found an old watering can, and we filled it full of alive. We was pouring it around people's in mouths.
When you see the birds, they feed their chicks.
Yes.
So we go up with our mouths, and you're just walking around the bar, just pouring out this watering can and all like that. I remember that. But that's what I'm saying, stuff like that. And it's really weird because obviously, drinking is not great. And as we said, Woolwich was such a deprived area in a way that it may have not been good to have so many bars located in one space and all that.
Yeah.
But the memories, it helped me shape the person I am today in a way. It helped me be a people person. Yeah, and then I went into working with young people. And I also, through them experiences that in a way you gave me because of it was your pub, I can relate to the young people I work with when they're going through certain situations. Because in a way, I've either been linked in that situation or went through that situation myself.
Yeah.
So I see the good and bad. Obviously, we all know alcohol's not a great thing. No. And people get addicted, and obviously it's great because it makes you feel better, but it's really weird. If you could bring back that environment without alcohol, I think there'd be so much happier people. Like it's a weird thing to say, but like I said, like the friendships I formed with people, there's people that I would never speak to. Like I said, that 50-year-old Scottish bloke, we became friends. I was like 20 at the time.
Yeah.
Then got other people that you just wouldn't think you'd mix together, but we all worked together because we were just out to have a good time.
Yeah.
And then obviously you then have your dickheads that came in, but your core group of people that sort of was your regulars every week, it was a nice group.
They were lovely, yeah. They really were, yes. Absolutely, yes. Keep in contact with them, quite a few. I mean, some of. I mean,
you then, because if people didn't care, like we've always stayed friends on Facebook and stuff. And the moment I messaged you about this, you was like, "Yeah, let's go for it."
Absolutely.
We had a reunion, didn't we, about 10 years ago? Other than that, I ain't spoke to you properly since.
Oh God, yeah, we were down. Was that at the Wetherspoons pub? Was it or no? Was it Wetherspoons? Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Harry, yeah. But other than that, we don't speak all the time. But
no,
still got that fondness from growing up that I know you're someone I can bring up and say that I need a bit of advice with this or a bit of help, and you wouldn't turn up the mate. So I think it's more of a testament to you more than the actual environment, if you know what I mean. Right. So we'll move on. Councillor. So like you said, you decided to go for it.
Yes.
What's your sort of aim in this role that you're doing?
I mean, I was in a pub many years back, and there was two guys were like gassing off. Oh, the council ought to do this, the council ought to do that. Why don't they do this? Why do they do that? They said yes to some development. They said no to that development. Oh, then a third person leant over and said, "Well, who did you vote for at the last election?" And both of them went, "Well, we don't vote." He said, "Well, shut the fuck up then." And they were like, and it was about to get tasty, you know. And the guy said, "No, I'm not being funny, but the people who make the decisions that you're bitching about are only doing it because enough people said, I want that person making my decision for me." Because I mean, I live in a town of I think it's 19,000 people. Now we can't all get together on a Thursday to decide whether Mrs. Smith can have a parking space, or Dave Jones can drop his curb, or Ethel can have a shed in a garden. We delegate those powers to people. And it's at town and parish level. I don't know how it works in London, but outside of London, you've got town and parish, so your town and village council. Then you've got your district councils. Then you've got your county councils. So the town will deal with the local halls, the grass cuttings and stuff like that. Your district will be your rubbish bins. It'll be, oh God, mental block now. I can't think. Your planning applications and stuff. And then your county council will deal with health issues. It'll deal with potholes and stuff like that. So it's always a horrible thing when somebody says, "Oh, the potholes that need fixing." I'm like, well, I can't do that because that's a county council issue. I can pass you on. I can speak to the person. Where do you live? You live on that street. Therefore, your county council is that person. Here's his number. Give him a call. Stuff like that. So it was the other side of, well, the council ought to do this, the council ought to do that. And I thought, well, if I think that they ought to do that, then I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? Because I'm also a trustee of a local private club. It's like, think of TJ's, but I'm full of old folk. Okay. It's a members-only club, and you can only go there if you're a member or a friend of a member, and it's very, very exclusive because there's no arseholes. You know what I mean? It's cheap drinks, and I'll tell you what, think of the Phoenix Nights, the old TV show. It's that. We've got bands on, we've got that kind of stuff. Your average age is about 95, but they're all nice people. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so we've got a committee that runs stuff, and I'm been co-opted onto that, sadly. And there's one guy who is always shouting about it. It's, "Oh, the committee ought to do this, the committee ought to do that, blah, 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 blah." So we said, well, come on the committee, and you can be one of those people. And I think he's missed the point because he's still saying the committee ought to do this, the committee ought to do that. It's like, you are the committee.
Yeah.
You are now the person. If you think that we ought to go out and get members, then you ought to go out and get members. If you think we ought to design a new logo, then you ought to design a new logo. Do you know what I mean? If you think we ought to ask 15 different people this stuff, find 15 people and ask them. You know what I mean? So that is the kind of thing that I'm now doing now in the council work. In that, I mean, you can't please everyone all the time. I mean, half my inbox is people saying that we ought to build more houses, and the other half of them are people saying, well, I've got a house, I don't want you to build any more houses because I've got a nice view of a field. Literally, when I was a kid at primary school, in Mr. Jenkins' class, I used to look out the window and see a beautiful field with cows and sheep and stuff in it. I then move away, come to London, see you guys, and then move back again after the divorce. And the field that I used to look at as a kid is now full of houses. And beyond that is the rest of the field. So I'm knocking on doors at election time. But oh no, I can't vote for you guys. Well, why not? Well, because you want to put houses in that field. And I said, did you know that I went to that primary school there, and your house is on the field that I used to see when I was a kid? That doesn't count. It's good. My house got built, so that's okay. But any more houses get built, I don't want those built.
Do you stay sort of impartial? Because obviously personal feelings may come in, but like if you've agreed something as a group, and you don't personally agree with it, how do you sort of go out and promote it still? Like, is it putting on that mask again? It's Dean the Councillor, so therefore I'm gonna.
Wow, that's a bloody good question. Well done. I think there's two levels there. One is on a party group level, in that, if you've got a decision to make, you've got your three main groups. So your Labour, your Lib Dems, your Tories, then you've got the smaller groups, the Independents and Greens, stuff like that. If there's a contentious issue, the individual groups will talk amongst themselves. So the Lib Dems will get together, and the Labour, and they'll decide amongst themselves as a group what they want to do. Now, most of the time, you'll have a vote, and it'll be 10 against 3, or 7 against 4, whatever. And then, if the group decides that, then you as a group will defend that decision. Now, obviously, if you were the one who didn't actually agree with it, you're probably less likely to work as hard as what you would do if you did actually believe in it. You know what I mean? You say, well, look, we as a group have looked at this, and on balance, we think this. I mean, I can see the reasons why you would say no to it, and you put it. If the council makes a decision, that's different, because the votes are open, and therefore you don't have to defend the council's view. You have to say, well, look, at the end of the day, we had an election last year. You guys voted in loads of people from this party, and this party want to do this. If you don't like that, don't vote for them again. So equally, say if it was our lot that brought it in, you say, well, you elected us to do this. We're the biggest party. We made the decision. If you don't like it, vote for the other guys. The one place that doesn't work, and you have to remain impartial, is planning. I mean, we meant to mention earlier, because by law, if you want to put an extension on your house, you have to do it in the belief and the knowledge that your application will be treated as equally as your next door neighbour. Doesn't matter whether your next door neighbour is friends with the council. It doesn't matter whether your next door neighbour is black or Jewish or went to public school. None of that should matter. It should be the same as when you go to court. You know what I mean? You have your jury of 12, and you have the right to be treated as an individual, and the law applies to you, and it's blind. So if you go into a planning application, say, right, I want to build a shed 6 foot high in my garden, and we say no, your next door neighbour asks for exactly the same thing, and we say yes, you've got the right to go, well, what's different? Do you know what I mean? It might be that your shed was blocking light on someone's house, whereas his one wasn't. If you'd moved the shed 4 foot back, it would be okay, whatever. But we have to apply the rules equally. And there was a big recently about Clackson's farm. He wanted to put a restaurant in that. And it's very easy to watch the show and go, well, obviously the councillors hate him. Well, no, because if we'd have said no to it because we don't like him, he has the right to sue us, because planning is the one thing you can't do on party political rules. You don't get together as a group of Labour guys or a group of Lib Dems guys and say, we don't like it, we're all going to vote against it. Every single person has to have their own vote, and they have to be able to defend that vote and say, look, under section blah blah blah, the planning application, it says this, but under section 4 of it, it says that, and you've got to make a decision based on that. A lot of planning law is quite vague in terms of it says, you ought to have this, and there should be weight applied to that, and it's never going to marry up as an easy answer. So you have to take the decision. I mean, I got hate mail from all over the world, bless me, you know what I mean? Because I said, well, no, because, I mean, okay, it's getting a bit boring now, but there's parts of London that you can build on because it's an old factory, it's derelict, it looks fucking awful. So if you put houses on it, it's going to look a lot better, yeah? That's what a brownfield feels like. But if you want to build the same house in the middle of Regent's Park, same house, the same size, but you're going to say no because there's certain parts that are protected, and there's places called Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty. Now, the biggest one in the country is the Cotswolds. It stretches from Bath all the way to Oxford, which is about 4 times the size of London. Wow. We're on the outskirts of it, and the border between being in the AONB and not being in the AONB is one road. Jeremy Clackson owns about 200 acres, of which 6 of those acres are on the other side of the road. If he'd have put his thing in the other side, we would have said yes to it like that. Because he put it in the protected bit, we had to say no to it. You know what I mean? And now, without casting aspersions on anyone at all, if he'd have put it in the right bit and we'd have said yes to it, season 2 would not have been as exciting. Do you know what I mean? Like I say, I'm not casting aspersions at all. Do you know what I mean? This is just a hypothetical fact. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you get to meet him during all this process, or was it?
We exchanged emails a few times, chat on the phone. Lovely guy. But, I mean, going back to what you and I said earlier about having your persona, your mask, your character, there certainly is that, you know what I mean? Because if you meet Jeremy, lots of power, that kind of thing, that is a character. He's portraying a role. He knows that sells books. He knows that sells TV shows. So he uses character.
That's his job.
That's his job. You know what I mean? In the same way that if you go to watch Al Murray live, you're seeing a shaved head bloke in pub landlord's gear spouting racist and xenophobic views. Al Murray, the person, is a very intelligent left-wing guy with a beautiful beard, highly intelligent. He's got a degree from Oxford in history. So you've got the character and the person. And Clarkson's one of those people who, away from the cameras, away from the boisterousness, he is a lovely guy. He does work hard for the community. And one of the sad things about saying no to his restaurant is that rural poverty is worse than urban poverty, because if you're poor in the city, then yeah, you're poor, but you've got doctors around the corner, your schools around the corner, everything's within walking distance. If you're born and raised in a village out here, some of the villages will have 20 or 30 houses. Your school is 14 miles away. You can't walk there because it's a single track road. You've got to take a bus. And your parents are paying £7.50 a day for you to go to school. You can't afford that. Do you know what I mean? If you're elderly, you need to see the doctor. Tough. That's 5 towns away. You might have to get 2 buses, 3 buses. And so the Cotswolds is seen as like a playground for the rich, and we are seeing it in that. I mean, you see it in London in terms of Hackney, in terms of Brixton, gentrification. You know what I mean? Rich folk buy cheap property, and then more rich people buying property. They then open up a soy latte coffee shop and a hipster bar and all the rest of it. And the locals like you and I kind of go, well, I can't afford to live here now. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So you've got people who are born in villages who will never be able to. I mean, my great-grandfather come back from the First World War. He survived, bless him, thankfully. And he went to work on a pig farm as a labourer. Now, in today's parlance, he was doing minimum wage job. He bought 3 houses and knocked them into one on a farm labourer's wage. That house, I actually went to visit it, and we knocked on the door and said, look, sounds weird, I know, but this is the house that our great grandfather built. My grandmother was born here. This is where my dad used to come for his teens before they sold it off. And he loved the history because he was just a chap from London, bought a house, and that's all he knew. So he was grateful to get them knowledge of a bit of history. And we showed him photos of the old house back in the 1920s and the 30s and stuff. And then the conversation turned around to the ugly matter of money. He paid £3 million for the house. A house that, 3 generations ago was worth nothing because it was in, what I mean? The rich people wanted to live in the city, and now it's changed. They want to live in the countryside. So you got your David Beckhams, your Kate Moss, and the fellow out of Not Boy's Own Take That, and your Clarksons, who are buying land out there. And Clarkson is the only person out of all of them who hasn't just bought a plot of land, put a fence around it with a big sign saying "fuck off, locals." He's tried to engage with the locals, so I will defend him on that score. Do you know what I mean? He has tried to work with us, and that would have given so much jobs to people who have no opportunity at all. There are no jobs here. That's part of the reason why I moved to London, because there was nothing here for me.
Can he not just reapply and put it in the right place, or
he can? Yes.
He can do that, but he's probably
yeah.
He said bit of TV show obviously needed.
You may say that I can comment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What you worked out was that he started filming in the January. The council thing was in the February, so we said no to it a month after filming starts. But if you watch season 2, he has an idea. He starts cooking. He meets the other farmers. He does this. He does that. He does this. Then the last episode, the horrible, nasty council say no. And we said, well, if you watch the episodes, all the other ones are filmed in the summertime. And we said no to him in February. Now, if you were cynical, you might say, well, did he film all that other stuff after we'd already told him no? Well, you'd like to think not, but,
again, we all know TV's a fake world, so...
You may say that. Yeah.
No, I'm just going by, it's really, really stupid. So when I was 15, I'd done a TV programme for the BBC.
Yeah.
Went off for a live interview on CBBC.
Oh, wow.
They had me up in the canteen the whole time the programme was on. And as soon as I come down, the first question live on TV was, so that's the first time you've seen that all the way through. How did you feel seeing yourself act on TV? I hadn't even seen the programme. But because you're in TV, you play along and you're like, it's really weird to act on TV. But I hadn't seen it until I got home. So that sort of gave me a little insight to how fake things can be. You just got to play the game, really. You can play along. So
absolutely.
What you're saying is probably plausible. As you said, we don't know, but there could have been a plan because he's making money. He's got to keep a programme going. So there's always a narrative behind everything. So...
Yes.
Right, it's been a real pleasure speaking to you. I've got one last question.
Okay.
I'll phone you from everyone. And your answer will not change your life journey so far. But if you had 30 seconds with your 13-year-old self, what would you say?
Do you know what? I'm of the opinion that every decision you've ever made in your entire life was based on the facts and the knowledge you had at that time. There's no good turning around. I mean, remember that TV show where they open the boxes, yeah? And he said, I'm going to choose number 7, I'm going to choose number 4, and there's a penny in there. Well, if I didn't know there was £1 million in that box, I'd have chosen that box. Yeah, but you didn't know.
Yeah.
You made the decision based on the time. So I've always said that I will never, ever, ever change anything in my life, because not only did I make the best choice at the right time based on the information I had, but also there's things in my life which at the moment you think, oh, that was a mistake, that was a fuck up, that led to this. But further down the line, I mean, I should never have taken the other job at Purely. I should have stayed at uni. I should have got my degree. I should have got a proper job. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have met the wife, wouldn't have had the kids, wouldn't have met you guys. Do you know what I mean? In fact, I'd have had no kids, because all of my kids are from girls I've met in bars. Do you know what I mean? Whilst I'm working. So if there was one thing I could tell my 13-year-old self is the non-uniform day that you're going to go to at the end of that term, you may think it was a good idea, but it wasn't. Don't wear a shell suit and a pink tie. That's a fucking stupid idea. You're going to look like a dick. Everyone's going to think you're a dick, and you're going to be upset and crying in the toilets afterwards because you fucked up. And there's no other way that can.
I've had so far. 30 odd episodes, that's probably the best answer so far. So thank you for that. Dean, it's been a real pleasure catching up with you again. You're welcome back on any time you want. Just give us a message and we'll be more than happy to have you back on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much as well for talking, okay?